Is this a common thing where maybe one person in the relationship is much more connected to their phone than, say, the other? And it's kind of starting to really drive a wall. And how aware do you think people are of themselves being addicted to their phone?
Oh, well, about 50% of people say that they're addicted to their phone. So that's from 2023. I imagine that that's actually it's a bit higher than that.
Yeah.
But if it is 50%, then yes, that's about half the people in relationships who are being impacted by this. And I think that like phones along with stress have the some of the biggest impacts on our relationship now. Because if you think about it, you used to talk to each other, and now all of a sudden that person is just sitting there. Like if I've got it now, like if I'm sitting there on my phone, how do you feel? I'm supposed to be talking to you, but I'm looking at my phone. And then maybe I look up at you every once in a while, but largely the other person feels like the phone is more important than them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we see that a lot, and it is really, I get annoyed with it if you're talking to a person, and probably total hypocrite, because I'm sure I do this myself also, but if you're talking to a person, and then in the middle of the conversation, they get a notification on their phone, and they immediately pull it out and go to their phone, and you get put on hold, basically, as a real-life person, whilst the phone takes priority. Like, oh, sorry, someone's messaged me. I have to
Yeah.
now leave you and go to that. And then I guess within relationships where you're in a much more, I don't know, comfortable space with that person, that probably happens a lot. You said stress and phone addiction sort of go hand in hand. Do you reckon people increase their phone use the more stressed they are, kind of as like a escapism kind of tool, as like a quick
Yeah.
fix for that?
Yeah, so we know people go to their phones for two really common reasons. One is to get that dopamine hit, so that instant feel-good moment, which, doing anything on your phone essentially gives you, seeing that kind of vibrancy of color, swiping, click, liking, getting notifications, that's all dopamine hits. But then also for connection. But ironically, there's this concept now called the intimacy famine. So we're desperately seeking connection, and we often do that online, but it actually exacerbates our feeling of loneliness. So it does the opposite of what we're hoping for. Gives us dopamine hits, but it doesn't give us connection. And real life relationships do. But if we're fubbing, if we're snubbing for the phone, then we're further damaging connection. So not only do we miss opportunities for it, but we're actually creating damage to it.
How do you reckon people go about bringing this up? Because, trying to tell your partner that they've got a problem with something is not anybody's favorite conversation. How do you recommend people maybe start to approach this issue if they've got this going on in their relationship, or there's one, it could be both people, but if there's one side in particular that's really heavily locked in on that thing, their awareness of it may be pretty far off reality. How do you sort of start to bring that up and have that conversation?
Well, I think I've talked about this with you guys before, is picking your moments. And so maybe the moment when they're on their phone, because they're already distracted, is not the best moment to start this conversation, but choosing another time that maybe you're just eating food together, maybe you're sitting in bed together, and you say, "Hey, can I raise something that I've been struggling with?" And so framing it also as a you thing, like I'm really struggling with this, as opposed to you suck and I hate when you do
That's a
this.
good angle to take. I like it. Yeah.
But generally in relationships, we don't want to hurt each other. But the way that we say this is so important in our tone. So, hey, can I say something that I've, been dealing with, that it's been hard for me? I feel like when you're on your phone and I'm trying to talk to you, I feel ignored. I feel like I'm not important. It feels like the phone's more important than me, and I really struggle with that. I don't feel heard, etc. And then they'll probably forget that you said that, but it means that in the moment when you say, "Hey, you're on your phone," they will then hark back to that conversation and more likely to put it down.
Do you have any, I don't know, obviously every relationship is different and people set up their lives, schedule, all sorts of things, but have you got any like baseline rules that you kind of recommend to people around this kind of stuff that you're like, immediately this will be helpful, like setting boundaries around phone use or location or anything like that?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's what I do myself. So it's not just what I recommend to others. So when I come home, I put the phone in a certain space, usually by the front door in my room, somewhere where it's not in the kitchen or the dining room, because, or the lounge. So that's where we're usually chatting. That's where I'm usually engaging with my kids as well. So the phone goes in a separate space and I'll go and check it, but I don't bring it into the communal space. So it's not about like abandoning your phone altogether, but having it in a designated place where you can go and, do a little checkout for 5 minutes means that the people in your life don't feel ignored and like you're like not prioritizing them. I also don't like, I don't want to see it. So if I'm having a conversation with Dave, I don't want to see my phone. I'll often put it even under a pillow or somewhere separate to me. No, it's really like it's a real thing.
No,
And
I get it. I
part
get
of
it. It's
that-
just funny, right? That
yeah.
you have to literally like put a lid on it. Be like, it needs to be hidden. Needs to be out of the way.
Yeah. And I think because if I can see it in my vicinity, I'm more likely to want to pick it up. So I try and remove it from my eyesight because of my probably deep phone addiction.
Yeah, well, this is I mean, I definitely can attest to this because I know I spend way too much time on my phone. And I definitely have noticed times where I'm just holding my phone for no reason, even if I'm not even using it or needing it, but it's just in my hand while I'm doing another thing. Why? It's become an extension of my own
Yeah.
body. And that's not a good place to be, right?
No. It's actually bad for you and it's bad for your partner. If you've got kids around, it's bad for them. The important people in our lives shouldn't be competing for our attention.
Mm.
So they should be able to access our attention quite quickly. And if they can't, it needs to be for an excellent reason. Like, hey, so sorry, this phone call or this email is super important, but I'm going to be with you in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
But not
nice.
just for general use.
You see those, I've seen them online of pictures where people get the reality check of their kid at kindy or school has drawn a picture of them and in their hand is their cell phone. And they're like, oh no, that's their like burned in image in their brain of me that's part of who I am intrinsically. You're like, okay.
That is horrendous.
Probably need a little bit of a reality check on that. Joe, it's 8:30. Got to go to the news, but thanks so much for joining us again. And if you want to get some coaching, relationship materials, Joe Robertson's website is fantastic, joerobertson.org. And on Instagram, she provides heaps of insights into all sorts of things regarding relationship and therapy. Thank you, Joe. Nice to catch up.
See ya.